Startuprad.io, your podcast and YouTube blog covering the German startup scene with news, interviews, and live events.
Hello and welcome everybody. This is Joe from Startuprad.io, your startup podcast and YouTube blog from Germany, bringing you again this month in GSA Startups March 2022. Again with Chris, but this time not from New York.
No, hi from my side. Actually, I'm in my old hometown in Hesse, in like provincial Germany. Same state as you are, but the other end of it. And actually, the name of the town translates to Joke Town, Witzenhausen.
This is awesome, Chris from Joketown. So I forgive you today's bagel, okay?
Yeah.
Our recording today is sponsored by Invest in Hessen and Startupraven.com. It is in radio syndication with our own station Startup.radio and our partner station IBGR.network. Surprisingly, we recorded this news episode on March 21st. 2022. The recording is 1 week earlier than usual due to the travel schedules of Chris and me. And as always, all news not included here will be published in our next news episode. Our highlights. We have the 100 most influential women in startup and venture capital in Europe. There are 2 new unicorns to announce in GSA. The unicorn Personio set up a charity fund and Germany's largest fintech exit at approximately $1 billion is in the making. We have an exclusive interview with the CEO in charge, spanning almost 40 minutes from July 2021. The company is called ID Now, and we try to touch on the Russian invasion in Ukraine as lightly as possible, only when it impacts the GSA startup scene, since you get more than enough news about this strategy on any other outlet. Please note that this does not mean we don't care, but it's just not our area of coverage. We are also talking about delivery startups and again, Wirecard. Not surprisingly, Wirecard will keep the German courts busy for years to come. Talking a little bit about our enablers here. This show was made possible by Invest in Hessen via Trade and Invest. You can learn more about them at invest-in-hessen.com. And we also run a dedicated sub-podcast with all interviews and news in cooperation with them. You can find it at techstartups.sounder.fm, as well as our project Startup Raven. It is the best way to identify investors and cooperation partners for early stage startups. Sign up for early access at startupraven.com and be one of the first 4,000, because we already have more than 3,500 signups here. Chris, you're my man for the top news, right?
Yeah. So let's kick it off. And this time around, it's actually with a look at women in the European startup scene. We found an article listing the top 100 most influential women in the startup and venture capital space on the website EU Startups. The link is in our show notes, but we also found that a couple of German women, or German language country women, are mentioned. We have, for example, Alina Bassi from Kleiderly. We have Ida Tin, the co-founder and chairwoman of the board of Clue, a female health app. Then we have Marie-Helene Armstreiter, lead partner at Speed Invest. Maria Pennanen, co-founder of Accelerator Frankfurt, and Miriam Wohlfahrt, founder of RatePay and Banksware. We have 2 new unicorns, one of them pretty exciting or interesting, I think, because we so often spoke about them already, which is Volocopter in Bruchsal, close to Karlsruhe in southwestern Germany. And Volocopter is a flying taxi startup. And we talked about it being a bit on like the, I don't know, like in recent years, the flying taxi phenomenon went a bit into the background of the news. I mean, obviously also because of the pandemic, because the pandemic took away so much air of everything else. But apparently Volocopter is still doing great. Even though there are a lot of probably climate change worries about their business model, but Volocopter picked up another $241 million. And they're also saying now that the service is now 2 years out. And with this transition, they also become a unicorn. So it's interesting that there's still so much movement in that market, I think. We have Staffbase, a company coming out of Chemnitz in in the eastern part of Germany. The private equity investors General Atlantic and Insight Partners invest 106 million euro in them. And now the company is also valued with more than $1 billion US dollars. So it's also now considered a unicorn. And we can also only congratulate there. And just to explain what Staffbase does, they basically are a platform that allow you to create apps for your employees, for example, for messaging or for instructional videos for within the company. We have also news about a German tech unicorn called Personio. Personio does HR software for smaller companies. And they now decided to join the companies like Canva that pledged to donate 1% of their money to charity, meaning in their case that they now created a charity fund that is already worth $66 million. The initial money in the fund went to charities tackling climate change and education inequality. So Personio really trying to give back there. Back to you with the second half of the top news.
Germany's largest fintech exit is in the making. ID Now is an online identification startup looking at Germany's largest fintech exit at a valuation of $1 billion US. Startuprad.io published an exclusive interview of ID Now in July 2021 with Andreas Bozek, the CEO. We talked to him exclusively for almost 40 minutes. You could, of course, find the link down here in the show notes. And the news was broke by Finance Forward, a German fintech blog. They are talking about ID Now having hired Goldman Sachs to sell the company. As we said, Russian-Ukraine conflict, just touching base here where it touches us. You get more than enough news of this tragedy, so we will only cover the news related to startups in GSA or Europe, supporting Ukraine, the response of the European startups, and how to help. You can find a link here. And as war in Ukraine continues, European VCs examine their Russian ties. So meaning they are looking who of my LPs is actually from Russia, who falls under the embargoes or something like that. The delivery unicorn gorillas, we talked about them quite often and quite frequently in our startup news. They are planning to raise another $700 million US in additional funding. Staying with Delivery Hero left the German market. Again, we talked about it. So Wolt and Lieferando split the market amongst them. Now Uber Eats plans a strong expansion. We see lower prices for consumers in the near future, right? Wirecard. 100 lawsuits have already been filed against German finance supervisor BaFin in the Wirecard case. According to the District Court Frankfurt, 500 additional are already announced. I can see there will be some Wirecard specialists at the end of that. Also, the Wirecard boss Braun is indicted for balance sheet manipulation by German finance oversight BaFin, looking at up to 10 years in prison. It is fair to assume it will not be the last case brought against him, either by BaFin or other parties. Talk a little bit about neo brokers here in GSA. Now there's at least a hint of a schedule for N26 much anticipated IPO. The N26 co-founder said we will be ready for an IPO at the end of 2022. Bitpanda in Vienna, Austria, they get a E-Geld-Institut license, meaning they can make electronic transfers and can provide payment services. With this license, they can offer more investments, including cooperation with bank for deposit brokerage. And they are also locking out all the Russian banks. This is not surprising given they are now a licensed financial service provider and the large sanction list. Chris, you talk about time to brag because you brag so awesomely.
Yes, definitely. Just a little side note in terms of our favorite topic, the delivery startups and the speedy delivery grocery startups. We texted a bit back and forth about the fact that in New York already the first two faltered down now, with Bike and Fridge no more not operating anymore, which is no surprise because I think in my apartment on 95th and 3rd, so kind of in the middle of the Upper East Side, I think I could choose between 5 or 6. So the market is way too saturated. So yeah, we will see how it goes. We often spoke about it on the podcast as well. Germany, especially as a market, is incredibly price sensitive when it comes to groceries. So we will see if people are really willing to pay a premium for the delivery and the fast delivery. And also, I think it's so interesting because it's such the product exists for so long. The only thing you can do now is you can look it up on the internet. But the fact that you could buy your groceries and someone delivers it to your door a bit later, that has been around when I was a child. Like my grandmother also got her stuff then delivered by the local grocery guy. Anyway, easier times. Let's talk about housekeeping and take some time to brag because we want to thank Egypt for downloading us so often that we reached the 60th place in the country's podcast charts.
60th country where 60th. We reached the podcast charts.
Sorry. We reached the 47th place, but it is the 60th country. To be precise, that's more like it. Yes. So March 15th and 16th, we reached number 47 in the entrepreneurship podcast, number 219 in the business podcast. So a bit room to grow, but we're getting there and are still very happy. So we say thank you and shukran for the audience there for making this possible and being one of the thousands downloading an episode each week. Very happy to have you. Our blog will move to medium.com. Background is that we completely changed the setup of the website and all our blog posts will move. So you then will be able to find us at medium.com/startuprate-io. If you follow us via RSS feed, you can update it to medium.com/feed/startuprate-io. We will put that out there quite often on social media and we will remind you on our streams as well. For now, just know that we move to medium.com and /startuprate-io. Coming to MeetFox, Suzanne, a founder from Vienna, sells her startup to the French Sendinblue. You can listen to the story in our interview with our colleague Johanna here. She tells us how she set up the company in Vienna as a marketplace for coaches, but soon realized that the company was better in payments and scheduling than at marketplaces, and how she was lured by tech stars from Vienna to New York City. So it's quite of a journey there. And you can learn more about her in the interview we put into the show notes. Interesting conversation. Enough with the bragging or the housekeeping. Ecosystem. So news related to all kinds of, let's say, macro structural things going on in Germany, Switzerland, and Austria. Because one of the biggest stories was that there was a shock for the whole German startup and business angel scene. The successful invest support for early business angel investments was cut by 50%. Without a warning and effective immediately, which has caused an open letter by founders and investors to protest. We have some background information about that in the show notes as well. And the German Minister of Finance, Christian Lindner, from the Liberal Party FDP, plans to spend 200 billion euros, around 215 billion US dollars, on climate protection and modernizing energy and industry to make it more climate friendly and digitize it more until 2026. Some of it has to be said. Some of it is a bit like he's just throwing out the numbers a bit, and it is not fully clear how much of the money used to be in budgets already and how much is additional. But still, just the fact that he is emphasizing it shows that Germany is taking the climate crisis as a serious topic, and that the new German government definitely makes it a top priority. Back to you.
We often talk about KfW's special situation in Germany. They also published the private equity barometer, venture capital barometer for Q4 2021 was just published, and the assessment of current business situation rose to an all-time high. Keep in mind, this neither includes the recent development in Ukraine, nor Corona, nor the increase in interest rates that are already happening on the horizon. Despite the good news, recent development leave traces in the German startup scene. German business newspaper Handelsblatt is asking if the fintech bubble is bursting. There is a trend towards lower valuation for fintech startups in Germany. Berlin-based Penta may be the first fundraising startup to feel it. In 2021, another record was set. Analytics company CB Insight found 221 new corporate venture capital funds. I was wondering, is that great news for startups or concerning for VCs? The first activities of the EU in the new Green Deal. The EU invests more than 110 million euros to give life to environmental and climate projects. We will keep you updated on investment activities of the many programs on different levels, but we will not cover every single investment here. Interest rates are rising, but EY expects to see more large buyout deals in the second half of 2022, saying that 2021 was already a great year with the number of buyouts rising 35% to 302. This may include tech companies. Remember TeamViewer. Why companies start buying up media outlets? Companies are realizing that owning their audience and going directly can lower customer acquisition costs and increase customer lifetime values, writes CB Insights. European fintech's fierce last year of founding shows no sign of slowing, writes tech.eu, and Credit Suisse strategist says we are witnessing the birth of a new monetary world order, meaning world financial system, and they are talking about the importance of cryptocurrencies. Hubs. As always, there are many deserving startups, cities, and entrepreneurs who will never get any English coverage. Would it not be for us? This is why the section exists, and as always, the order of cities and news is just the order we found them. There's no other order to it. Berlin and Munich leading the charge. EU startups made a list of the 10 fastest growing German startups to watch in 2022. All of them are either from Berlin or Munich, which speaks well for both hubs. For example, Medikit from Berlin, Hive from Berlin, Klima from Berlin, Marvel Fusion from Munich, Quinn from Berlin, Gorillas, Pliant from Berlin, Arrive from Munich, Dance from Berlin, and Gunzilla Games from Berlin. Switching to my home turf, Frankfurt here. Deutsche Börse, the operator of Frankfurt Stock Exchange, DAX stocks and other indices, finalizes the acquisition of majority stake in Swiss-based crypto finance. Commerz Ventures is the VC arm or part of the VC arm of Germany's second largest listed bank, Commerzbank. They are closing a 300 million fund to boost European fintech and insurtech startups. Insurtech unicorn from Frankfurt, Clark, has set up a holding structure as a European entity SE, which can be taken as a step to preparing for an IPO. Our own article in the news, we talked about the acquisition of Intranav by Nasdaq listed in Pixion. Now the price tag of their 2021 now the price tag was disclosed in the 2021 annual SEC filing. Intranav was acquired for exactly 1 million euros. And also my birthplace, Mainz, BioNTech starts new center for cancer immune therapy in Mainz. And Chris, you have some even less often spoken about places here in the news, right?
Yeah, exactly. Looking at the list of cities, this is really quite creative. We start in Magdeburg, which is in former Eastern Germany. And it's interesting because it actually is quite a successful industrial cluster there for the chip industry, which is also fitting because Intel said that they will build a chip factory in Magdeburg. Moving on to Landau in der Pfalz, that is going from the deep East Germany to deep Western Germany in the center west of Germany. Lovely city within the region of the Pfalz, the so-called Southern Wine Route. Not even 50,000 people live there, but we are happy to have some startup news for the first time about them here. Florian Bein disclosed an investment of unknown amount in B-Drop.
B-Drop, yes.
B-Drop, yeah. I was going to read like Bedrop, but no, it's B-Drop. A startup producing honey, which is supposed to strengthen the immune system.
Chris, I actually have to smile when you go through the hubs because you're thinking like in pictures, and I'm just realizing all the people listening to us in New York or Tokyo subway, and I'm thinking, what is he talking about? Left, right, west, east?
And I feel like a geography teacher that I could have never been, but I'm channeling it in these like 5 minutes every
Channel
month.
your geography teacher. Go ahead.
Yes. So we travel from center west to southwest of Germany to Stuttgart, very often known for the car industry because it's the city of Porsche and Mercedes and, for example, Bosch, the car supplier. But now there's news about BEX, a startup for the last mile delivery for the construction industry. They raised 5.6 million euro. And in Görlitz, probably Germany's next big startup hub, who knows? But we can ask Kat Borlongan from Sifted, who answered a couple of questions about this. In Tübingen, again close to Stuttgart, jumping wildly back and forth here, we've covered CureVac quite a lot here. And CureVac is it's a biotech startup that had high hopes for a COVID vaccine, which didn't really come into fruition. So most of the time it has been bad news for the company. So we feel obliged to also share some good news from them because they established an RNA printer-specific company as light as at the end of the tunnel nears. So probably they will be able to turn around their company story of the past couple of months. In Cologne, we see the German VC firm Capnamic, which closed 190 million euro fund to fuel startups in German-speaking countries. And in Munich, we have the Munich-based 2TRDE, which picked up 7 million for its used vehicle platform. I'm wondering how you're supposed to spell their name. 2Trade? Maybe,
yeah.
2Trade, but without an A. So it's spelled the number 2 and then TRD. We have Goldman Sachs Asset Management and existing investors HPE Growth and Cinco Capital, who invest $70 million in venture capital in the Munich-based insurtech Xempus, with an X in the beginning, formerly known as XBAV, bringing the total for the life insurance and pension software as a service solution to $125 million.
Chris, today you're not very lucky with all the startup names, right?
No. I know. And I mean, I miss those times where they just got rid of the vowels. Now they get rid of everything. Like now they get rid of cents, apparently. And so Saarbrücken in Germany's smallest state, which is not a city, the Saarland, is the home of the 5 million euro seed. Is the home of the startup native.ai, but native NATIF, which got a 5 million euro seed investment. And one of the quotes there is, "Its superior technology based on artificial intelligence automates document-based processes, freeing employees from paperwork." That's from HTGF. And as always, we also love to look at the other German language countries. This time around, it's a rather small look, or rather fast look. In Austria, we see that the Vienna-based startup Archeon picked up 6.5 million euro to turn CO2 into food, carbon dioxide. So let's do that. And in Switzerland, we see Neo Medical, a medtech company based in Lausanne in Switzerland, raised $20.6 million in funding. And after all these news about the ecosystem, we will go to industries and general news, tech news, the company section. We start with fintechs, which is your area of expertise.
Chris, I have a suggestion. How about next time, before we start recording the news, you sort the hubs in geographical order so that we go from north to south, from east to west or so?
I will come up with scenic routes all the time, and we'll tell you the most fun facts about all this.
Yes, we call it scenic routes. That's awesome. Talking about fintechs here in the general news, Deutsche bankers are popular with fintechs. Well, at least their employees. Former Deutsche bankers are working with Raisin DS. Soon, the head of Raisin Bank, CEO of Solaris Bank, CEO of Trade Republic, and N26 head of public affairs, or Penta's head of growth, have all been with Deutsche before. The merger between deposit broker Raisin and Deposit Solutions to Raisin DS is Germany's largest fintech merger to date. Now the 2020 numbers of DS, meaning Deposit Solutions, revealed they had to fight with declining revenues and losing bank partners. So it was likely not a merger of equals. Berlin-based fintech Moonfair raised $125 million in US dollar from Tiger Global in November. Now more data is available. Some we want to share with you here. For example, the CEO is the former CEO of KKR Germany. He wants to enter the US market with the funding, and with it some math here. On average, the current customer invests 680,000 euros each. Berlin-based unicorn Solaris Bank hires first female executive as chief growth officer. The French lady named Chloé Mayenop, yes,
yeah,
has been working.
Hoping that we haven't forgotten any of the accents, but yeah, Chloé Mayenop.
Yeah, totally fine. If I butcher that, don't worry. I'll give you an interview. Everything's fine. You can correct it, and we talk about what you do. In the past, she has been working for Natixis Payments before, part of the investment bank Natixis. Speedinvest, the VC, invests together with Y Combinator and business angels like Bitpanda CEO Eric Demuth in French fintech Finery, which will launch also soon in Germany. Modify raises $145 million US in debt financing. Flixbus, Flink, and Runtastic founders backed the Berlin startup with 3.5 million euros to put an end to inefficient e-commerce deliveries. And I'll soon tell you the name because I totally forgot when I put together the news. Carla, exactly. Carla. I'm so sorry. Sometimes you have all the important data in there and you forget the startup name. Dang it. But not the next news. Berlin-based Pay Rails raises 5.7 million to launch payments and financial services operating system. Chris, I think you have a very, very few and selected venture capital and fundraising news.
Yeah, super speedy ride. Just mentioning a couple of individual companies having received some money or some investment money in the recent weeks. We, for example, have the Berlin-based unicorn Forto, which raised 250 million US dollars in venture capital, pumping their valuation to a staggering 2.1 billion US dollars now. Investors now include Disruptive, SoftBank, G Squared, Northzone, Unbound, and AP Miller Holding. The French-German healthcare tech platform Doctolib now reached a 6.4 billion US dollars valuation, also crazy numbers. Bain Capital Ventures launched a 50-60 million crypto fund, dollars that is. The Berlin-based early-stage Revend raises 60 million euros for their fund, investing in impact startups. So Revend, just like invent, but with RE in the beginning, if you're interested in the impact startup scene. German healthcare startup Formel Skin got a 30 million euro boost to make dermatology more accessible. Monite is helping software as a service businesses and neobanks build new products with 5 million US dollars they receive themselves. Instafreight raises 40 million US dollars in venture capital. In our show notes here, it says $40 in venture capital. I really hope they got 40 million in venture capital and not just $40. Investors include the PE fund Heliad and the European Investment Bank, as well as existing investors. Back to you.
All those people were doing all that stuff for just 40 US dollars. I'm sure it would also make the news here. Any other news? HelloFresh sees slowing growth and share price takes a dive. Ford sells electric scooter unit spin to Berlin's Tier. Tiger Global is also in Germany and an important investor in the startup scene. So it drew our attention when CB Insights published an article, especially since Tiger has closed in Q1, 60% of the number of deals they did in all of 2021. So they're already at 60% of the deal count. Awesome. Egyptian furniture marketplace HomeSmart acquires German tech company Disrupt Africa. Davanda, a German competitor of Etsy, has already been shut down, but the published data reveals now that Etsy still paid 35 million US dollar for the remainders. Sad news for EdTech Charlie. First, they lost in 2019 their 26-year-old co-founder who passed away following a traffic accident. I totally remember that we talked about this in the news. Now they have to file for insolvency. That's pretty sad. There's an interesting idea to travel. Cargo Riders is a German startup allowing you to book a trip with a container ship. Also awesome. German grocery giant Rewe sells its stake in Durst.de, thirst.de, a beverage delivery service, even though they invested only 2 years ago. Guys, if you celebrated, Happy Easter. We will be back with our news wrap up on April 28th. And we have some more articles on Stay Ahead of the Curve. Chris, it was a pleasure talking to you and hope to see you soon.
Same to you. Back in New York at the end of April. Looking forward.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
That's all, folks. Find more news, streams, events, and interviews at www.startuprad.io. Remember, sharing is caring.